what ends up happening with their communication styles and their personalities actually is that older women tend to respond better to good game. Hey guys, Hector Castillo-Papi from girlschase.com. Today I want to talk about dating older women versus younger women and the difference of the personalities and communication styles that you'll see with women depending on their age and experience and wisdom. And then in the second part after this, I want to go over kind of how their desires change based on, what they want out of a relationship and who they want those relationships with. Now, before I get started, I want to make something super clear, okay? So age does not necessarily make someone wise. It can provide that opportunity, but two things need to be in place. One, they have to have experience. You can have a lot of years, but not have them filled with a lot of years. You can have a lot of experience even then, but if you don't learn from those experiences and you make the same mistakes over and over and you're very smart and discerning, then you don't become wise. So, our elders are not necessarily the most wise people. Someone could be very young and very mature. And I know that growing up with people who are now going to be the people, ruling the world at some point, I'm a little bit scared because I know a lot of these people are really stupid and I don't really think that they're going to change that much, to be completely honest. And I'm sure every generation has felt that way, right? So when I talk about an older woman versus younger woman, instead of me at every point saying, well, there's an exception, maybe I just want to make very, very clear before we get started, older doesn't necessarily mean more experienced or more wise, but I'm going to be using that kind of generally as a benchmark so that we don't have to put footnotes at every goddamn point I make, okay? So now when a woman is younger, let's go over communication styles and how they kind of interact with the world. So when a woman is younger, now even when she's young, she has a wealth of experience because when women are younger, the female brain actually, younger girls watch people's faces a lot. They watch the faces of their parents. They've done experiments with this and they look for their approval. Whereas boys are a little bit more just like willy-nilly and they just do things and they just take action. Girls are a little bit more careful and they're more social beings. So even by the time they're 18, they're very well socialized. Plus, by the time they hit puberty when they were 13, 14, and they started, getting boobs and butts and they started being sexual, like guys were going after them. By the time they were a freshman in high school, the seniors were giving them wealth of experience of sexual, romantic, social interaction. So by the time they're 18, they're very well experienced. Now, whether they're wise, again, is a completely different point. But they are going to be a little bit more impulsive. They're going to be a little bit more naive. And I would say they're going to be more primal, okay? So impulsive meaning their communication styles are going to be very rough. They're going to just kind of say things as they are. If you've ever spent time with inexperienced women, they can actually be some of the most direct women. If you meet a girl who's super direct with what she wants and what she expects, you have one of two scenarios. She's either super experienced and very mature, or she's incredibly inexperienced. And the only way for her to express herself is just very directly. It's kind of how I became very direct with my sexuality, is because I was young and inexperienced. And I was like, how do I express what it is that I want to express? And so I was like, I'm just going to be kind of simple and just say exactly what I want, and then that actually became a personality trait of me to be super transparent. This is a trait of younger women. They're just going to be very impulsive with what they do and what they say. So they're going to be a little bit sometimes harsher and a little bit more brutal, and you're going to have very kind of cutthroat experiences with them. If they really like you, it's going to be very, very obvious. If they don't like you, it's going to be very, very obvious. They haven't developed those suave ways of handling more awkward and ambivalent situations. Now, they're going to be more naive with some of their communication styles. In one hand, they can be a little bit too trusting. They're going to be a little bit too peer pressure is going to affect them as well. And so their personality is going to be very formed by their surroundings and their what their friends want, what they think their parents want. This is a trait of all young people, not just women. But because they're going to be kind of pushed more and corralled into what others want, this is going to sometimes be to your benefit and sometimes not, depending if you communicate in that way that is kind of the status quo and the norm, and act in ways that is the norm. So the pros kind of dating younger women is that they're going to be very obvious with the things that they do. If they play games, right, because they're going to be immature, it's going to be pretty obvious what they're doing, and so you're going to be able to deal with it. Kind of, you're going to be like, oh, like a silly girl trying to, you know, act too cool for school, or she's trying to act like when younger girls try to act like not interested, like they'll just so clearly like do like this. And when I was watching them and dating them, especially in college, I was like, I can't tell if she's trolling me and like being so obvious about her games that she wants me to see it. It's some like meta thing, but I'm like, I don't know if she's that smart to be thinking on like 5 levels and playing 60 chess. So I was like, I think she's just like this, and just like being super like obvious. I remember once like this girl was trying to be sexy and talking to me, and she kind of like just so obviously did like a pose, and she was like, oh yeah, and did like this, and then she like fell over into the wall next to her. And I was like, do you think that this is working? Or, you know, and I'm sure some guys just like it anyways, and I was just like, that was so awkward. But because she's so kind of impulsive and simple and naive with her behaviors, you can see through them. So it can be interesting to experience and have fun with. It can be very refreshing to spend time with them. So if you want to date younger women who are 18, 19, or early 20s, it can be very fun to spend time with them because of these personality traits and ways of communication. But on one hand, they're going to be very primal, so this might not be so good for some of the guys who are a little bit more intellectual, who are more personality based in their what makes them attractive, because they're going to respond to the more simple, either physical traits, or, I mean, they're still women, so they love the way a man expresses himself more than just how he looks. But you have to do things kind of simply. You can't be too complex. Not in like, you can't have depth to your character and they're all just super shallow. That's not my assertion. My assertion is that they respond to, I wanted to use the word prima facie, but I'm like, I'm not in a philosophy class. Fuck, Hector. They respond more, what that means is the thing on the front, okay? So you wanna make sure that whatever you're doing is very clear. You're not trying to be too meta. You're not trying to be too like sophisticated, like, or if you are being sophisticated, it's very clear the way that you signal it, okay? So it's all about your fundamentals. I mean, this is just good game in general, but you want to make sure that you're communicating to them on this level where you're very clear about the way that you're coming off, and you focus more on the way that you look and the voice tonality that you have, because they're going to be affected more on the primal level, but they're also going to be communicating to you on a primal level. So when you're with younger women, they can feel sexier because they're so much more manly, animalistic was the word I'm looking for. So they're so much more like there's something more alive about them, and very, like I said, refreshing. And so it can feel, they look younger, they're more like, the experience is like you're around a fountain of youth. And if you're older, this can be very nice and refreshing, and can make you feel young again because they have that young energy. Now, as she gets older, these things are for the most part gonna change. Now, what I love though is older women who haven't lost that young beauty. And I don't mean that in the physical sense. I mean it in there's this energy that everyone has, an energy, like a vibe, okay? And I love when older women have the experience and the wisdom of being older, but they still have that younger energy, okay? And that's what a truly wise woman is gonna have, actually. What's gonna happen when a woman gets older is hopefully she actually becomes harder on the front, but now she's learned how to be refined and kind of more complex. And she can be very soft. So they can have this, the most beautiful older women that I've been around, they have this angelicness to them, but then they're smart and they know how to communicate in very sophisticated ways in the front, and they're very like refined and proper, okay? Because as they get older, they're going to have experiences and hopefully learn from those experiences. And so they're gonna know how to handle a wealth of more social situations and strange behaviors from people, and cool behaviors from people, and they're gonna be much more well-equipped to deal with them. So what ends up happening with their communication styles and their personalities actually is that older women tend to respond better to good game, okay, because they've seen it all now, but truly seen it all. Like I said, by the time they're 18, they have a ton of experience, but they haven't yet spent usually a lot of time. There's few women who have like older boyfriends when they're younger, like they're 17 and they date like 30-year-olds. I've heard this from a lot of girls. It's super common. But once they're like in their 25 plus, that's where I think women start to become older. They start to really get a lot of experience with the older, more refined guys who have complex game and complex personalities that have been fleshed out over a decade. And because of that experience, they themselves become more complex. So the younger girl who is so primal that sometimes she's not going to mesh well with an older personality. It's not to say that younger girls don't love older guys, because they definitely do, but it's more of like a mystified, like he's so older and experienced and wise, and they kind of just revere it in and of itself, but they don't understand it too much because they themselves haven't become it. You have to become something to understand it. So when they get older, they do become that older self, that more wise self. They're going to respond better to more sophisticated game, more word games and ways of tonalities that you can express yourself on deeper levels with. And there's levels to your communication, and there's nuances to your body language and hand gestures and eye contact that they're going to pick up because they've been in that situation 20 times. So as a woman gets older, she's going to communicate herself conversely with much more mature game as well, because she's going to, the younger girl was direct because she was naive. Now that she's older, she's going to know when to be kind of playful with her language and a little bit more implicit and direct. But when there is time for directness, it's very refreshing to have her be so serious. When you're older, when you're with an older girl, if they don't like you, you're gonna know right away. The younger girl will kind of play with you a little bit more, but the older woman will be very upfront about what she wants because she's learned, for the most part, like I said, there can be very immature older women, but for the most part, she's learned that playing those games with those guys and having all those guys chasing her is not as pleasurable as she liked when she was younger. She sees that it's kind of empty validation. And so these more wise older women don't really value that. So they're very direct with who they want in their life and who they don't want in their life. And this can save you a lot of time and emotions and uncertainty. And when you are on their good side and they really like you, it's so nice to have them be so direct with you. So as they get older, they get more refined with their language and their way of being. They're more mature in general because they've had more experiences, and because they've seen everything, they know how to respond to it. So this is just it's gonna be good to have in a girlfriend. It's gonna be good to have in a woman who knows how to express herself properly and deal with situations and not need guidance at every point. So dating the younger girl is very refreshing and fun, but it can be very tiring sometimes because she doesn't know how to handle herself, or will act kind of stupid and silly because that's the only way she knows how. But the older woman, hopefully she hasn't lost that young energy, but now has a more refined air to her and a more refined style of communication, and her personality's got more fleshed out. She found out who she was and who she wanted to be. And as we get into the second video about what she wants, will become much more clear. I'd say that the transformation point starts at about 25. Some girls get really, really experienced younger on, but it's usually, for the most part, because they go through a lot of shit. And unfortunately, what happens with some of these girls is that they kind of become very cynical and very jaded. And so you'll like them because they're mature, but they carry a lot of that toxic baggage with them, which is very unfortunate. But it's a choice that they made. You know, we all go through shitty stuff, but a more wise older woman can go through trauma and adversity, but she can overcome it because she's wise, and wisdom is discerning. And when a woman is discerning, she can know what to take out of an experience and what to leave. So after 25 and into her 30s, you're gonna see a woman kind of blossom into her prime. And I think that my favorite women are 25 plus, honestly. Yeah, the younger girls are sometimes hotter, but I've met some women who are close to their 30s, but they took care of themselves. And they didn't drink too much and do a lot of drugs, and they got some fucking sleep, and they did good activities. Women who engage in really shitty stuff and do a lot of shitty stuff, it tends to change their appearance. So When a girl gets closer to 30, I've seen that she can actually be at her most beautiful. She's at her prime physically, in my opinion, and personality-wise, she's at her peak. So I actually really like when women get close to 30. It can be very, very enjoyable to date them. So that's how their personality changes, their communication changes, and there's pros to dating younger girls, more rejuvenating to be around, more fun. You might just enjoy the silliness of being around them. And some younger girls can be extremely mature and very well equipped to deal with situations and communicate with you very clearly and not play a lot of games. But it's rare, to be completely honest. So an older woman, for the most part, is going to be more mature, more clear, and more direct. And her personality has been fleshed out. And so you can kind of see the real her, if you want to use that phrase. And they would make better girlfriends when they get older. Definitely more serious partner, because they know what they want. But we're gonna go more into that in the second video, where we talk about how a woman's desires change and how her relationships change, and what she's looking for and who she's looking for changes as she gets older. So stay tuned for part number 2, where we talk about desire. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video. Hector Castillo, Poppy from girlschase.com. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.